So I'm Harry Bosh. I work here in Melbourne doing web development like a lot of you guys. Actually I talk at Melbourne Joomla User Group, so I'd normally say a lot of you guys, but there's almost 50% travelling to here, so that was interesting. Today, user experience design. So what I've been working on my own time is a component, and it's something small. It's a case study for today. It's called Inquisitive, and I noticed a funny thing happen after I upgraded it recently to 2.5. It got 450 more hits than normal, and that was because I released it to the Joomla extension directory, and for me that's a lot. You know, I don't get a lot of traffic, and because what I do is mainly market my own self from word of mouth or just the normal channels. But the main thing I'm talking to you about today is bounce rate dropped by 34%, and that's important because for me, I want the bounce rate lower. For other people, what bounce rate means is when someone hits your page and then they leave from that single page. They either time out or whatever. They move on, close the browser, but they don't continue on through your site. So in some instances, you'd want a high bounce rate because, bang, they get their content and then leave, you know. And then that's great for like Wikipedia or something. But for mine, I want people to explore what I'm doing with my component. Usability in itself is a combination of function and form. You have to have a balance. It's great to have a balance because otherwise you're not going to get usability 100%. But the experience of usability, I think, is not really being approached correctly at the moment because I think people are thinking of it as a user interface design, and they're not taking it further. So I think we all need to take the experience that the user has further beyond usability as just being able to do something. You actually have to get an emotion from people, because otherwise, you know, we've evolved, the web's evolved. So if you're not getting that, might not be competing well with other organisations out there that are generating a response. I did my games degree here, in this room actually, so I'm quite comfortable. And yeah, it was good. It's great. I don't think the world, in the web world, is quite catching up to the games. I think I've got a few ideas of what's happening in the future, and one would be TV channels. When you're at home sitting on the TV, you'll be able to switch the channel, no problems. That's always the case. But what's going to happen, I think, is the websites are going to be linkable from the TV remote, and then you'll go to the website, and then you'll be able to interact with the website and buy something online. It's feasible with the technologies there. You know, digital TV, computers, it's all in there. And you've got to think what's happening in the future. You're in business. I think most of you, who's in business here? Who's got their own business? And so that's most people are in business, and you've got to be keeping ahead of what's going on. Otherwise, complacency will set in, and you've got to just keep moving with it. This what you're seeing right now is a bulletin board system. That's how things used to look. We were just trying to focus on ability. Didn't really care too much about whatever else. Just had to get, like, this is how you interface with messages, files on a 28K or whatever. What do you see here? I need somebody to put their hand up and say, you know, what they see here straight off. What's the common? Transport, beautiful, yeah. You know, some people might think cars, but yeah, transport's accurate because that's the the actual underlying purpose of it. So what's the perspective here? Who's really, where do you take the angle from? Do you look at it as the horse and carriage? How they're going to be looking at transport compared to the blue car at the bottom, which is from Stanford, it's automated, and for argument's sake, I'm just going to say it's battery operated because that's the way we're going to go. Who wants automation in their vehicles? Who wants to be able to not drive their car? And right. Not many people do, right? But it's happening. It exists. Okay, it's happening right now. So the reason why I say that is the ability is driving most of the time what's happening. So you've got to take perspectives here, and the goals for the business user, or designer, or developer are different, and that's our job, is to juggle. I don't know about you guys, but I have to do design and development, and that's like switching hats is not easy to do sometimes, but you have to do it, and you got to get in a creative space, and then you got to get in a coding space. It's so different. You can read that because there's nothing more I need to really say about why usability is good. But I want to keep pushing forward with experience. It's something that I think it's going to be heading towards more with websites. You're going to be provoking that emotion that you want. And it's not just sales, it's anything. Okay, so this is a mind map of this usability framework that I'm going to be talking to you a bit later. I don't know if I've got too much time because of lunch. I know you guys are hungry. But yeah, so a mind map is something I just came across pretty recently, actually, and I much prefer it over a bullet list. So you can get this stuff later off my website. I'll give you a link if you want to have a look as to what's going on. So the problem solving, the perspective you're looking at is how do you then take all those goals that we talked about before from the user, the business, all that stuff, how do you take that and then make sense of it? So what I suggest you do is get some post-it notes, start writing down all the problems that you're dealing with, and then create an affinity diagram, grouping them all together, giving them the appropriate heading names, and then give those to people to manage. Or if you have to do it yourself, if you're a small business person like me, you get your hat and you put it on when you're supposed to, and don't fragment. I mean, obviously, dividing and conquer has worked in the past, so it's kind of a reverse thing here, where you're grouping the problems together. Now, for taxonomy, I'm probably sure you've heard of card sorts. Open and closed card sorts is where you get those post-it notes out again, write down all the items, all the categories, put them on there, and then if you don't want to, when I say categories, that would be the heading name of the open card sort. Sorry, sorry, I always get these two confused. Yep, so the closed card sort, they're given the heading names, and that way you're kind of narrowing it down. By then you've already got an idea of what your products and services are falling in. This is more for like people with 2,000, 3,000 products or items, not so much for the smaller businesses. But still, it's important if you're, like for SEO and stuff like that, if people are getting to your site and they don't quite know what to do, that would be another aspect, another perspective to take. So what it would look like is if you're sitting there and you're sitting with the client creating a quote, and you often have to get the directory tree happening, and they don't know. Like a lot of the times I've dealt with people, they don't know exactly what you're trying to get at. So write down the products and services that they have, ask them to do it. If they don't know categories, this is a good time to kill birds and stones like all together, and that, because that's what we do. We're just trying to get that performance going where you've got efficiency. And if you don't know who you're talking to, then there's again, that's usability will go out the window if you don't know who you're talking to. Speak to your marketing people. If that's you again, or like me, I have to do that. So define who it is you're targeting. That's important. And what I suggest you do is once you know who you're targeting, get out there in the public space, save some money. Don't pay for people to use your stuff. People will be quite happy just for a couple of jelly beans just to use your stuff because they're very opinionated. They're happy to talk about what they think and feel, and that's where you're going to get a lot of information. So first you've got to define who you're looking for, and that's basically there with the name, age, gender, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not going to have time for that. Okay, what that quote means is that inquisitive previously was terrible. And it still is. Like, it's a long way off being, in my opinion, usable. And that's what the case study is about. This component that I've created that creates surveys and quiz. That's the new version of the template only. So we've gone from a standard Joomla template. Wasn't pretty, but I was busy developing, so I didn't care. I had to do something. So I've moved it into. If I had time, I'd show you. It's got an animating JavaScript header, and it scrolls down, and whatever. It looks better, and that gives confidence with brand. And at the end of the day, I think there's a strong connection between customer service and usability experience. Customer service, like Richard Branson says, I didn't really care much for big people with their expensive toys and all that, but I read his book and it's all right. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about, even though he does have too much money than he needs. I think often that maybe he might have. He says things like this: a successful business must never lose its focus on its customers, maintaining its standards. That's easy to say when you're in a hammock on your own island, pretty much. Okay, so where are you really coming from with that? Because here we are being realistic. You can't do everything the customer says, but what you can do is you can give your best to the customer, and when they see that, that's the usability experience that you're providing as well, and that doesn't cost too much but time. So yeah, that's our limitations to deal with. So I'm fed off the comments that I get. It's not much, but it's good for me. That's where I just get a few comments there. Okay, this is the bread and butter of usability, really. You're going to sit somebody down, or actually, that's not necessarily correct. You might be standing up with an iPad or something, doesn't matter, but you're going to get them in front of a device that you're using, and you're going to watch their face. If you can, record them with like Cam Studio, what they're doing, and watch their expressions, and don't interrupt. Just let them do their thing. Because that's the valuable stuff, and if they're making mistakes and struggling, it's not their fault. It's your fault. It's up to you to fix that. Because, okay, some people have varying skill levels, but if you've done your persona properly, you've targeted the right person, then it's your fault. It's as simple as that. You've got business goals that you're trying to achieve, but if you haven't done the usability testing properly, forget it. And this is not just a once-off thing. My component's going to fail over and over and over again. It's just constantly going to be failing. That's just the nature of it. And I've got to be humble enough that when someone says, "Oh, this sucks," I've got to go, "Okay, I've got to address that." But that's a valuable thing, and they're my customers. They're your customers. Your clients' customers are still your customers. That's just a spreadsheet where you've got mainly focusing on the questions. The answer column is going to be empty until you finish usability, the contextual inquiry. I think, yeah, the contextual inquiry is very important. Definitely take some time. If there's anything you take away from this, have a look at that. So once you've got this data, you'll be asking quantitative and qualitative questions. You've got your ABCD on the left there. It's got the numbers, which is important for reporting. And then there's the text response, which is handy just for kind of knowing how to fix the problems later on, implementing the changes, and then you'll probably want to do the usability test again. You could schedule this maybe quarterly or something, or even if you've got time more. But I mean, you could do it all the time. If you see a user, you could just grab them and say, what do you think of this? And I don't know how you're going to sell that to your customers, but they're going to start expecting, you know, the good customers will start expecting this kind of thing. So you need to factor that in. Sorry about the complication on this. The task here might be, let's say, one of the questions was, did you find the game enjoyable? Right, because I've created a game as well. It's just a basic, silly game. And that's a key one for me. So if they didn't find it enjoyable, that's a problem in the number one column. It's a powerful problem. It's just as simple as that. I've given it a rating of 10, so it's multiplying it by 10. That if I get too many of those, forget it. I've got to go back to the drawing board, start again. But I can allow more basic problems like, was the objective clear? In games, that's not necessarily the case. And that's why in websites, you might not necessarily need people to get from A to Z. It might not be the situation. You might need to be engaging them in other ways, because that comes back to the experience, not the usability so much. So, I mean, yes, usable to do what you're trying to achieve, but the experience is detached from that. So that's how I'd rank and report to my customer and say, okay, you got like a level 10 or something, which would be bad because like golf, you want to get the lowest score. If you had 0, maybe there's something wrong with your usability test and you need to look at that again. Yeah, so I know I'm harping on the feelings and thoughts though, but it's important. You need to persuade people as to what you're trying to achieve. Talk to your marketing people and that. Thanks. It's time for lunch, I think.
Just a question actually.
Yep.
Just with regards to general usability, I mean, I'd like to go for, from my own side, something that is most accessible to most users in a sense. So I mean, you know, that's vision impaired, that's ability impaired in some ways, that's age gaps. You know, I'm asking my parents a lot of things we're talking about here today about usability and the rest of it. Sometimes it does seem a bit out of touch, you know, because my parents, when I see them typing in a URL,
That's right.
they'll get scared away if there's no W's or there'll be whatever it might be. And so I'm curious whether you have any perhaps resources that you could let us in on, maybe throw them up on the website later that might show eye pattern scans for different age levels on page uses, or just general information about this kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's exploded. The usability has exploded. If you want to go back to the root of it all, Jacob Nielsen is pretty much the godfather of it all. He was doing it back when it wasn't cool, I guess. You know, if you saw the start of the slide, there was an old guy pointing at the screen, and it's that kind of era in the 70s when usability wasn't big. I think everyone's referring back to him, you know. But saying that, his content it's pretty raw. It's like very biblical in a way, you know. So it's not in a nice modern laid out modern. So you'd have to translate it. And I didn't quite catch all of your question. But I did notice the older generation thing where you're saying that that there's that whole they're getting used to the www part now that you don't have to do that, and it's like, well, why don't I? So I know what you're saying there, and they're a big market share. So yeah, and they might have more time on their hands now that there's not, you know, they're retiring and things. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. If I mean, if you happen to come across, or if you have any personal sort of websites that might have resources like,
Right.
you know, like we saw that lecture was in that basically had the on the SEO.
Yeah. They've got actually machines that track eyes, and it's expensive stuff. But yeah, you'll see the red dots. There's SEO Moz, might help you as well. That's for SEO Moz. Yeah.
I have a comment as a very old person. It's really interesting talking to designers and trying to tell them that when you get over 50, you can't see things, they're little and grey. Like even for example on shampoo, about 50% of my friends get their shampoo bottle and put a big S on it because they can't see the writing when
Yeah.
they've got their glasses on. On the other way around. My husband's definitely a texter man. And I actually rang up a company and said, when you you're a company that promotes the old people. Put the S bigger. People can't see. Oh, it doesn't fit the design.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll just wreck your design every time. It's exactly the same.
So it comes back to design is form and functionality is how does it work. I just assumed that you would know that, but function is, is it doing what it's supposed to do, and form is, does it allow you to access it. So both of those together is usability, and yeah.
Sometimes the discussion that one needs to have with the client is, okay, you've given me your target markets. You feel are your target markets. Please prove your target markets. The design that you want, which has minimal on the page, and that you're now expecting that your end user is going to have some sort of ESP about where they click in order to be able to navigate through the site. You've indicated that part of your target market is an older target market. Most of those people are not going to know. Then have a look at some of your younger targets. They probably don't know either. I get really pissed off when I go to websites where all you've got is a picture in one top corner, and you've got no idea where to go from there on in. So the discussion
And what was the objective of that website? What were they trying to get you to do, the one with the picture?
It was a fashion site.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, isn't it? They just, unless they're selling something from their site, they're just trying to create an atmosphere. And in the process, like they're always contemporary and trying to stay abreast of the designs, but the new designs, they're actually using quite large fonts because of the CSS and stuff. You can create huge fonts, and that's a fad now. So are you expecting that everyone's going to know what to do now with the scrolling, the forever scrolling web pages, and everything's changing? So if you don't have the guidelines and stick to the traditional navigation at the top, then people aren't going to know what to do straight up.
And that argument's been had for a number of years about certain standardisation. Things like certain things that people are used to having on the left, and things that
But the thing is, when you go shopping for clothes, do you really want a standardised clothes? No, you want something unique, and that's what.
With a shop to have a front door.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Yeah. So.
Can I add something to the?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just a comment before the guy at the back. The best thing you can do is use Google Google Website Optimizer. Solves all the problems between your opinion and the client's opinion. And like I've been to Google things, they just say test. If you don't know, you can send any percentage of traffic you want to different pages, A/B testing, and then you can actually put divs. You can have big text if you want. If you're an experiment, you can have really big text. Send 50% of your clients there, and then the other page, you have 50% of your clients with small text. To see how many conversions you get each one.
Yeah, the only problem with that though, Alistair, is that if you actually have to have something working before you put it into the market, you can't do that. You've got to. This is part of the experience part. You've got to have it solid before it gets launched, and I haven't done that in my case study. I'm just launching just to get nice feedback and whatever. But the truth is, if you want to have a solid brand, you wouldn't want to jeopardize the kind of feel of it by having it tested live. So
in relation to testing and stuff like that, there's a site called ClickTail, which actually records the visitors that come to your site. So it'll record where their mouse is and where they're hovering, where they're moving around and what they're clicking on.
There's a lot of great free stuff.
As a as a video. It's not free. It's not
Yeah.
completely free, but
Grab
we
Cam
use that
Studio
in
and you can do it for free. If you got technical knowledge, you can install it and record from your own computer. And I mean, it's not easy to say like remotely try other people. You know, get people remotely to do it.
You just record the next 50 visitors that come to your site.